Hi, good morning. This is the Gardener community meeting. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. So today we only have two topics. We had more on the agenda, but some of the speakers moved to a later date. So we have Pablo with the topic conformance tests for OS images. And then we have Rafael with an update on the changes in Gardener release 020. So Pablo, can you start?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Just allow me a second. Backlight here. Sorry.
Oh, it's better, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to start because I haven't seen the changes in the agenda. Well, my topic actually is, I hope, not that long. The point is this following. As you know, we are moving forward to offer support for SUSE operating system in Gardener. And this has two parts: the controller, the operating system configuration controller part, which is part of the Gardener itself, and then the image that SUSE is going to provide. From the SUSE part, the people who is in charge of this image, they asked me what could be a process to automate the testing of the new images. Because these images are going to have regular update for fixing security issues, etc. And they want to automate to be sure that image work with the Gardener. So it's more for the side of Gardener. How can they test their images against the Gardener, being an outside resource? So I was thinking that if we can reuse somehow the integration test infrastructure that you have, and actually this framework that we were talking about some weeks ago, that basically allow kind of modular parametric test. I don't know if that could be possible to use. For us, that will be something important just to ensure that we don't disrupt the functionality of the image somehow. And that's the question. It's more a question than how can we do this kind of testing.
Anyone from the build or from the testing team?
No, I did.
So what exactly do you want to test?
Oh yeah, Tim.
So the problem is that the question is, what do you really want to test with your image? So we can just add you to our test pipeline, and then we test like our default integration tests and the conformance test of Kubernetes with the choose image, and then ensure that the basic Kubernetes features and services and stuff like that is working. But I think we cannot really ensure like the under image, so like basic or really down level things in there. So the question is, what do you really want to test in there? So what you don't want to break?
I think that this integration test will be fine. And what we want to do is basically has a minimal testing that we are not. For instance, suppose that we drop a required package and then the worker never came up. That's something that happened to me testing locally. I rebuilt my image. I forgot that the last time I had added one package manually. So when I rebuilt my image, it didn't work because I didn't install some package. So that's the kind of stuff they want to be sure that there are no obvious mistakes. So having kind of integration test that basically is launching how I see it, it's like creating a cluster, launching some workers, see that the workers, I suppose the kind of stuff you do in your integration test. But I suppose that now your integration tests point to some core OS image. The question is, could it be possible to run exactly the same test pointing to a different image?
Sure, it's possible. So this is just a configuration. So it is possible to specify your image in the shoot YAML. Then we can just run the same test that we run with the current image with your image. So it's not a problem.
Okay, that sounds good. And the last part of this. Okay, yeah, I recall something like that from where you explained your integration test framework. But the other part is how can, and that's probably more project or collaboration question, the technical one is that how can we implement that in a continuous way? I mean, it's like, could we, as you say, provider of this image has kind of access to run this integration test or something like that? Because we need to, I mean, they want to trigger the test somehow.
Yeah. So I think there are two possibilities. So for one, you can run them on your own, because we're currently working on a framework so that you can create your own gardener and then run your specific test in there. Or we could integrate you in our current pipelines. But I think this is more on Dieter decision.
Basically, I would say let us discuss that internally first, Pablo, so that we can come to some direction, and then we will get in touch with you.
Great.
As to see whether there is a possibility for you to reuse our infrastructure, whether it is more worthwhile to help you in setting up that test machinery on your side so that you can autonomously run these tests on your side. And then, you know, it's not only about access, but also about having the duty to react on when failures occur. And so therefore I would say let us discuss that internally first, how to best proceed, and then we come back to you to see whether one or the other direction is preferable.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one question.
Otherwise, then,
Can you hear me? Yeah. So when we're talking
Yes.
about JEOS adoption, are we talking about the VM image or the container image, or both?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't got the question.
Yes, you can. Yeah, your JEOS adoption, is it about the VM image? So having the JEOS on the VM, hosting Gardener managed Kubernetes clusters, or is it meant to be JEOS for running inside each container?
No, it's for the VM image.
Okay,
it's actually in this point we're talking about AWS image.
All right, thank you.
are there any more questions to this topic? If not, then Rafael can present the Gardener 020 update.
Hello. Yeah, it's not. It's more about the more important change with the out-of-tree DNS support that is now in with 020. So
okay.
I will only talk about that. That's the main change. Okay. Like last time when I showed the operating system config, just a recap how it was before. So previously, this is now one case how to define a domain. The Gardener administrator, or the person that installs the Gardener, is creating a default domain secret, which contains the credentials and some information about the domain, at which provider it's managed and in which host it's owned. And then every shoot here that does not directly specify a domain will be automatically get such a default domain assigned. So that means that end users don't need to bring their own domain, but can use the one that is coming from the Gardener installation, so to say. So
the secret, right? It's not a shoot.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it should be secret. Yeah. Change will come again. Anyway, so the shoot is sent to the Gardener, the Garden cluster, and previously the Gardener contained Terraform configuration for, I think, 4 different DNS providers. So when it came to that step in the flow, it just computed this Terraform configuration and then started the Terraform job running in the seed cluster that is was creating the records. And yeah, Terraform talks to the provider API, of course. Then there was another way to define a domain for a shoot that is not using the default domain, but bring a custom domain. In this case, the information must be put into the shoot itself, and a secret must be referenced that contained then the credentials for this custom domain. And this was coming from the end user, if he wants to use his own domain. But in the end, the flow is the same, or was the same. Okay. So now that we have changed this, we have removed all of this in-tree DNS logic and are now relying on external or extension DNS controller. So how will it look like now? First, this is the secret again. The annotations here have changed, so we are now using DNS Gardener Cloud. The old one are still working, but are deprecated. And we don't need the hosted zone anymore. So if you put it, it won't be read at all. And what also has changed is the data. So previously, Gardener read the secret and did something with it. So it defined how the data looked like. And now this is, of course, done by the extension controller. So how you specify your credentials here is now coming from the DNS controller you register. It's not always the same. Yeah, okay. So, but then what is now happening, the shoot is coming to the Gardener, and the Gardener administrator has registered an external DNS controller for certain providers. That means in the seed cluster we get a namespace where this extension is installed, similar to the operating system config. And then when the shoot is created, at some point in time, the DNS records shall be created. That means Gardener writes such a DNS provider resource into the seed. And this DNS provider resource contains a reference to the secret, which is copied from the Garden cluster here into the seed as well. Information about the provider type and which domains should be managed with this provider object. And yeah. This is observed by the extension controller, and as a next step, another DNS CRD is installed, which is then defining the request to actually create a DNS entry. So in this DNS entry object, you just specify the name and the targets and the TTL, and the DNS controller must itself find out the proper provider that matches to this DNS entry object. When it has done that, it directly talks to the cloud provider API without Terraform anymore. Well, maybe it also uses Terraform under the hood. We don't know. And yeah, and the same basically. Sorry.
This was quick.
The same basically as the user has specified his own domain. In the end, just another secret is used, and the configuration is coming not from the default domain secret, but directly from the shoot. But in the seed, the picture is exactly the same. I'm not sure if in this round has already been given this talk about this external DNS controller that has been written by Uwe and Andreas. I think it was only internally, right?
I think so.
Maybe we can do it again this round. Maybe it makes sense. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Do we have questions to this process?
No, but we got
yeah.
already. Yeah.
It's like in this slide you showed the shoot has this DNS spec, and the previous slides there were some annotations.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of having the annotation and the spec? I mean,
you mean in this case, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is for the use case that the end user that creates the shoot object doesn't have a custom domain. So the user doesn't own any domain, but every cluster needs a domain.
Okay.
So that means the Gardener administrator, this should be secret here. The Gardener administrator has registered a secret in the Garden cluster that is used as default domain for all the shoot clusters that don't have specified a domain in their spec.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is not a shoot. This is a secret.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And the information about the domain is then put as annotations into the secret.
Perfect. Makes sense. Okay.
So the user will never see these credentials. That's why it is not directly in the shoot object.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a small question, Rafael. So in this case, when we the DNS domain credentials, provider and credentials are taken from default domain, do we respect the provider field in the shoot YAML?
No. So with with Gardener 20 or O20, you can also completely leave out the DNS section. So you could just don't specify it, and then you get the default domain also automatically. You don't need to know the provider. This was the case previously also. You have to know which provider is used as default domain. And this is, of course, an information an end user does not necessarily have.
Yeah, sure.
But now you just can completely leave out the DNS section and should get your domain.
Is the third way also working? So the third option was always to specify the domain and nothing else. I guess that continues to work.
Yeah.
You put it just in the, okay.
So you can, there's still this provider called unmanaged. If you say provider is unmanaged, then Gardener does nothing with DNS. But you can also say the provider is unmanaged and still provide the domain name. That would just mean that Gardener would put this domain name in the server certificate of the Cube API server. But you would need to manage this DNS record yourself. Gardener would only put it in the certificate and that's it. Or you can also just say, I want to manage my DNS completely independent of Gardener, then just say provider is unmanaged and don't specify anything else.
Yesterday I was talking to another company in the SAP family. And they had very good feedback about the DNS controller, so they were very happy. Oh, that made their week last week, they said, and they need more of these features because that's when you look at the Kubernetes offerings, that's something infrastructure specific, and this is now a generic way to get managed DNS records. So they were very happy with that one. Even had it running for themselves before we have rolled out 20.
Okay, so then I have.
And the secret is replicated as well from the Gardener Express to the C cluster?
Yes. Yeah. So at the moment, here in the provider object is the secret reference in the shoot namespace. So it needs to be copied over there. Maybe in the future we can optimize that and only copy it over once into the seed and then reference it cross namespace, but just at the moment it's done the simplest way possible. Okay, then I have a summary what needs to be done. So first of all, the extension DNS controller needs to be registered via this controller registration resource that we already know. If you use this external DNS management tool from us, then you can click on this link and maybe I click quickly. You will find an example manifest for this. The good thing here is that we also now have Azure DNS support that we didn't have previously in Gardener, but with this we have it. So this needs to be done. Then these, as said, these annotation, the old annotation with Garden subcloud IO is deprecated. You can still use it, but it will be removed in the future. So UDNS, the new annotation would be with Gardener.cloud. And then, of course, the secret data keys are now no longer managed by Gardener. So for the external DNS management controller, you definitely have to change them. And then you can take a look at the secret examples here. So for AWS, you see the keys look like that. And for the others, you also have examples. These are the three things that are also written as release notes, if you rather want to look there. And yeah, this is just a link summary. So we have, again, our extensibility proposal. We have this overview document. We have also documentation about the contract. If somebody wants to write his own DNS extension for Gardener, and the API definition. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Rafael. Are there any other topics you want to discuss in this meeting? Anyone in the round? Okay, that seems not to be the case. Then the next meeting is next week on Thursday afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.